Hey friends, welcome back to the L2RT podcast. We are back this week with our second part of the L2RT Game of the Year. As usual, I'm your host Ron, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host Jax.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the L2RT Gaming podcast.
Hey Jax, how have you been, mate?
I've been good, and as you know already, I finally received my birthday gift from 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Was that a Kickstarter again?
You know me. I used to be addicted to Kickstarter. I haven't bought anything from Kickstarter for a while, so I've unsubscribed to all the emails. But I am very happy with my birthday gift from my past self.
Yes, so you got to tell us more about it. You showed me a photo of your new board game. And I can say about it is the tower of the game looks amazing, like collector edition type of things. So tell me and our audience, how do you find it so far?
Okay, I'm just gonna tell everyone what it is. So it's the board game edition of Frostbpunk. So it helped that this is a gaming podcast, so I can talk about my board game. And Frostbpunk started as a computer game. So I played Frostbpunk about 3 years ago, and then I really loved it a lot. Did you get to play Frostbpunk?
I didn't get around to try it, but I'll get it someday because it's on Game Pass.
Oh yeah, and definitely. I feel like because it's nice on the big screen, but I also feel like it's one of those games that you can stop anytime. So if you have a handheld, I think it works great. I mean, I wish it's on mobile. If it's on a mobile or iPad, it would be just amazing. I'll get it again. Okay, so with the board game, it's basically long story short, you are leading a small community in an apocalypse, just snowed in, and then you find this settlement with it's like a steampunk setting. So there's this massive steam tower, which is the tower you saw in the middle. And then so you have to survive, lead the society and survive and fuel the steam tower, collect different things like wood and coal, and then build life again and survive. In the board game, survive 25 turns, if I remember correctly. So 25 days you have to survive.
Oh, okay. The survival part is going to be the main part of the game, right?
Yeah, so like it's really detailed in the video game, and actually the board game is also really detailed. Well, when I show you the photo, there's a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different phases. So you have like the morning phase where you draw a card which tells you what happened in the morning. So there may be some things you have to some problems you have to resolve, or you might get a bonus or something, mostly a bad things, by the way. And then you get to do things like technology, and then you get to assign your workers to do different things, gather resources or set up for expeditions to find people or resources. And then once you deal with all of those, you have to construct your building. And because it's a snow apocalypse, so you have to fuel the generator to heat enough, because it's circular, right? So your town goes in rings, just like the underground. So in the first tier, only the inner tier is warm. So if you send workers out to work in the cold, they get sick and then they will die, and they will hit your morale. And then of course just a lot of different things like that. And then by the end of the day, it's the dusk round, and then you pick up another scenario. So another problem comes up, and then you have to see if you can solve everything.
Yes. Sounds like a very interesting game, especially that sounds like it is quite related to the computer game you've played before already. Am I correct?
Yeah. And one of the main reasons I bought this because for once, this board game you can play with 1 to 4 players. So it's possible to just play by myself when I have no friends.
But because the game on the PC is only, or Xbox is only single player, am I correct?
Yeah, exactly. So like the reason I bought this because most of my other games, so I have a Game of Thrones Risk Edition, which is amazing. But because it's always like, with most board games, is a competitive scene,
Yes.
It's a PvP. So you always lose friends. And so the great thing about Frostpunk is a co-op game.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so that's one of the reasons I bought it. And plus I love the setting.
Okay.
And so, I read online they say that the game should take around 2 hours. I'm sure 2 hours is only when you're familiar with the game. It took me 90 minutes to unbox and set up.
Another 90 minutes for you to read the instructions, right?
Exactly. So it took me a long while. Like I've only had time to play 2 days. Not
2 days.
real life 2 days, but 2 day round in the game. And then I had to pack it all up because I just didn't have time anymore. Because it's a big game. You need a big table for it, you know?
Yes. Just tell me, is there any function for the tower in the middle?
Oh yeah, it's actually really cool. So okay, so you have to. It's more than cosmetic, by the way. So basically, when you fuel the tower to heat up your settlement, you have to put the coal inside the tower. So you drop it in through the middle, and there's a lot of crisscross plastic inside, and then basically there will be a large chance that the coal will drop to the bottom drawer. And then at the end of the day, the next day, you have to pull out the drawer and then take out the coal. The number of coal equals the generator stress level.
Oh, okay.
So when it hits 10 coal, then the generator will blow, and then you'll have to reset. And then if it blows the second time, it's game over.
Wow, sounds complicated and quite stressful as well.
Yeah, yeah. So you can upgrade the generator, and then there's another piece of plastic you can add on to the top in the central column, and then it will help reduce the number of coal that falls in. So it's a bit of chance, a bit of this. Yeah, it's really quite cool.
Yes. Well, I'm sure as hell looking forward to try the game out. With you.
Yes.
I always like old school board games. Great way to spend times with family and friends over a weekend or the coming up holiday.
Exactly. So, Ron, talking about family and friends, what have you been up to these days?
Oh, I've been very busy preparing for my kid coming out. Oh, coming out sounds very awkward. So, my son is going to be born.
Literally.
Yes, physically this time. So, my son is going to be born next week, I think. So, with that coming up for me, I've been reading a lot of books about giving birth and what my wife is going to go through, and a lot of preparation on how to take care of a newborn child. So, starting from next week, I might not be available for the podcast. Jax will be hosting it next week.
Yes.
And maybe he will find a guest to join him.
Well, what we agreed is, just so the audience know, we will finish the Game of the Year series. So don't worry. Yes. We started it last week. This is the second one. And next week, we'll probably pre-record it early next week or end of this week. So next week will still be the third and final Game of the Year series podcast with Ron and myself. And then, but after that, what we'll do is I'll try and invite, I have someone lined up. They already said yes. And then just a sneak preview. He's mainly a Nintendo Switch player. So we'll have someone to cover a bit of Switch gaming thoughts and news. And so happens there has been a very big and popular game on Switch that was out last week or 2 weeks ago. So we're going to talk about that.
Oh, I have no idea there's a new game to Switch. So I'll be looking forward to hearing it as well.
Yeah, and you should get it because you have sleepless nights and you can just grab your Switch, you know.
Yes. So let us move on to the main part of this week's podcast, the second L2RT Game of the Year. So Jax, tell us all about your second Game of the Year.
Okay, sure. Before I tell everyone, just a quick recap. This year, for the Game of the Year, I'm doing something different compared to Ron. I've actually ranked my 3 Game of the Year games. So in third place, in my personal opinion, and of course only on the games that I've played, and those we mentioned 2 weeks ago, was Tunic. Okay, and so if you want to hear more about Tunic and our experience and thoughts, check out our last episode. So today we're going to chat about my second place Game of the Year game, which I've spent around 28 hours playing it.
Okay.
Can you guess what it is, Ron?
Drum roll?
Can you guess?
I'm thinking of a strategy game. Maybe. Well, there's not much strategy game out lately. Maybe a turn-based game or... Oh, I know. It's about vampires, werewolves, and cowboys.
Oh, oh, yep. It is
I
called Weird
get it.
West, which is
Ah,
a well
yes.
done, good job. Did you check out my notes, by the way?
No, no, no. Come on.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, Weird West is a dark fantasy single player. I think they call it as a immersive sim action game. It's set in an alternate Wild West universe with monsters, including cult, vampires, werewolves, and witchcraft and pigmen and spirits. Okay, so
Ooh.
I love it because it's a really engaging story with dark humor. And just to give everyone the context, IGN gave it 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Wow.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, yeah, I gave it 2 out of 13, second place.
That got me a bit worried just now. 2 out of 13, right?
Yes. It's not really high, but if you reverse it in second place, it's pretty good, you know?
Yes.
So have you got round to trying it, Ron?
I still have not too many backlogs to go through, as you have known.
Yes.
So tell us more about it.
Yes, and yeah, and you'll be even more busier. But this could be, I hope, like after chatting about this, you might give this a go when you have time for a handheld experience, okay? So a few things I really love about this game, okay? I've made a big list, so I'm trying to breeze through this. Okay, so I mean, it's a immersive sim, so the story is one thing I really enjoy. And Ron, as you know, like I mainly enjoy multiplayer shooters most of the time, or multiplayer games. So I haven't really got around to doing a lot of single player games. And this actually one of the reasons that kept me in was because of the story. So just without okay, I'm not going to give any details, but you know, some people may feel like talking about it is already spoiling the game, right? So, it's a dark fantasy story and is set in 5 different acts. You can see 5 different stories with 5 different
stories.
characters. Okay,
Oh,
so
I did
I've
not
only
know
played
that.
through until the 4th one. And like the interesting thing is, like the first round, in the first act when I was playing it, near the end, I thought that was the end of the game because I spent like nearly 8 hours on it already, and I felt like, oh, is this going to be the end of the game? And then it turns out that it's not. And then so at the end of each act, there are many like shadowy figures having 5 different portraits, and when you finish one shows up. So you see that there's 4 more to go, and that's how I realized there's 5 different stories, and they're all tied together with these shadowy figures who seem to play a big part of the game, and they kind of narrate the game a little bit. And so as the decisions you make, and you see some of them, they're kind of like watching you in a kind of experiment sort of thing, but you don't know what's going on. So that's how the story goes. And so the first one you play as a human, then you play as a pigman, Native American, now on the werewolf. And I guess the 5th one is probably vampire. I'm not sure because I haven't got around to it yet.
I'm sorry. So I've got to ask. So there are 5 different stories, and you've gone through 4 of them. And what
Yep.
what are the main enemies for each of them? Are they the same, or are they all different?
Okay, so it's still set in the same map. Okay, it's like one big map with each location as instances. So you're traveling across the big map, it'll count time. So you're within the map, and you do see some let's put it this way, for each story there is a main villain. So the first one, you're a human, kind of like a bounty hunter, a retired bounty hunter, and then the main villain is a human trafficker.
Or human trafficker?
And then as you move on to different stories, the villain of that story plot is different, but there's an overarching tie-in. So each main character, as you play, they have this mark on their neck, which the characters in the game mention a few times. And like one cool thing is a nice tie-in is that you can, because this is a game is like it's a single player, you control your character, but then you can recruit 2 allies, and you can recruit the previous main person, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. So different stories are now intertwined instead of a separate different story in the same universe.
Yep.
That's a good touch.
Yep. And I mentioned about the shadowy figures, so they would tell you more through each act, and they're like kind of questioning you. I mean, one cool thing about the game is every time you finish I'm gonna call it act, okay, the story, they kind of have a summary of all the decisions you've made, and like kind of like they show you what happened. This character was not killed. You saved this person, that sort of thing. And then so I feel like the ending may be counting up all the things you did and then have a separate ending. I hope.
Okay.
So it's highly replayable, I think.
I can see why, because previous 4 different stories might end up with a different result for the final one.
And like one thing you like, Ron, is that one thing I really like is it's an unrestricted playstyle, so you can kill NPCs and even story characters.
Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah. So because one of the hint was saying that you can kill anyone. So throughout my first 2 acts, there's this NPC who kind of follows you and is tracking what you're doing and tracking your main character with the mark, and then is trying to ask you to do something for them. Because I think with the mark you get, or that character is trying to look for immortality. Okay. And so
makes sense.
Like he's kind of annoying. And so at one point, I think in my 3rd story, he was asking me to help him get some stuff, and I just shotgun his face. And then so
you get to be
I feel like this was going to be yeah, I'm like, I don't want you to be immortal, you're just annoying, right?
That is pretty cool.
So yeah, with the unrestricted playstyle, as I mentioned, you can kill anyone. I mean, it has this old school quick save and quick load function, so you can always load back and try a different route.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
I mean, this kind of playstyle is probably going to take me more than 40 hours, double your time to finish the game. I like to quick load and quick save.
You see, exactly. And so I see online people say that, oh, if you complete everything, it's normally around a 24-hour playthrough. I'm like, oh my god, I'm on 28, but I haven't even finished all those stuff.
I get it now.
Yeah. So so talking about the playstyle, you can do stealth or guns blazing. And one thing that they kind of encourage stealth is you don't get experience through killing people. So if you're a person who enjoys stealth, you won't lose out on the experience.
That's pretty cool.
And the way that they build up XP is there's 2 different items you will find as loot. Okay, like a golden card which will unlock different passives, and then something else which will unlock redeemable action skills for skills. And then because you can save up the skill, and say I don't use any of these skill points to upgrade my first character, and then I can put it all in my second character. So it is transferable through the 5 stories.
Okay.
So just quickly go through a few more things that I really enjoy is that there's a bit of character building, as I was alluding to, with loot and a bit of skills. And so so that's kind of okay. But that is one of the thing I will mention later regarding the loot. And then there's this system called, like, I'm just going to call it like a friend or foe system. So there are people who you'll encounter in random. So as you travel through the big map in kind of like a fast travel thing, you will have these random encounters, or sometimes in missions, you save people. And once you save them, they're kind of like a friend for life, and they will come back and help you in when you are really struggling.
Oh, okay.
So that's the friend system. And then same as the foe system, so there are these bounties you can do. And so if you go and do the bounty and say I'm shooting their boss and I kill the boss, a few of the minions may flee. And then if they flee, then you have a vendetta against you. And they will come back anytime randomly to attack you. So once there was this person who came back as I was about to attack another bounty. So he suddenly came in and ruined everything and just got all shot up and I had to quick load again.
This game sounds like a very in-depth RPG game that I would like a lot. I heard about you play this game before, but I did not know it is this depth. You have this kind of RPG elements inside. That's very interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So another thing that you love, Ron, is they have some decent, I wouldn't say it's like expert, decent physics in the game as well. Just a bit like, okay, if I ask you, Ron, what is the physics that you remember in Dragon Age Origin? that wowed you?
Oh, you mean the original one or?
Yep, the original
Oh,
one.
okay. The most stand out by that time is not really physics. I mean, graphic wise, is when you are in a battle, you got blood all over yourself, right? And we really like that, and it got cleaned up when we go back to camp.
Yep, yep. Okay, so I wasn't alluding to that, but there were many different elemental combos in this game. So
Oh, I
remember
get what
back
you
in
mean.
Dragon Age, if you throw
Yes.
a fireball at oil slump, and then there would be a nice combo. So of course you can throw fire into oil, or one thing I really enjoy is some instances, some maps are like farmland. So if there's a bunch of enemies in the field, you can throw a firebomb into the field, and it will start to burn through the whole all the crops. So that's quite a nice way.
Yes.
But of course, they can run away from the fire, but it's kind of good. So there are like things like explosive barrels or poison barrels throughout the game. If you do a say a fire, if you throw a Molotov cocktail into the poison barrel, it will explode. It will become an explosion. There's like rain. Rain will be a wet effect or a puddle on the ground. Then you get this throwable called lightning in the bottle, which will electrify people who are there.
Yes.
And then, of course, if you are using the bow and arrow, and then you can light your arrow with different elements like poison and fire. And so it's kind of a nice combo to help you go through the game.
Yes, when you mentioned about this physics, I just come back. Instead of Dragon Age, I'm actually thinking about another game that we co-op together for a very short time. It's called Divinity Original Sins.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that game has similar physics and mechanics, I would like to say. And
Yep.
that is one of the kind of, I mean, this is one of the RPG games with these kind of elements that I really enjoyed. So, yeah, sounds amazing.
Yeah, so that is a quick run through a list of the things that I really enjoy about this game. Okay, without taking 6 hours to talk about it, but obviously, like, it's not like the most perfect game on earth. So if I was looking for things that I wish it would be a bit better, would be things like that I wish the loot were more meaningful. So you can upgrade your weapons in game. So when
yes.
you obviously you can loot dead bodies and things, you get different weapons in tiers, and most of the time the tiers merely means a buff in damage. So I wish there was a bit more, but obviously it can't be a game with everything, right? So you can upgrade the
is
weapons
true.
at Smiths and like deconstruct some stuff and then get some metal, that sort, that cycle. And then another thing I wish is because when you're traveling through the big map, it takes there's a time limit, and the only thing that I see that is limited in time is normally bounties. So you might have 5 days to complete the bounty. So the first time I did it, I picked up 2 bounty at the same time, and then both were counting down 5 days. And I didn't have a horse then, so it took me 3 days to walk, or like a day and a half to walk to the next place. And then as you're fighting, the clock kind of goes down as well. So I
Okay.
wish more missions were time sensitive.
So it gives a more urgency feel to it.
Exactly, exactly.
That's good.
But of course, that kind of go against the exploration part. So I wish there was a bit of a balance there. And then, of course, I wish there was a bit more map varieties. So I love the instances, especially the random encounters, is very similar. But
Okay.
of course, this is not a AAA game or anyhow. So I mean, I still enjoyed it.
It does sound like a AAA RPG game instead.
Yeah. I mean, there's already a lot of elements about the game which I really like. So, like, obviously, I'm just cherry picking. I wish it could be the perfect game, right? And actually, one thing that I wouldn't say annoy me, kind of broke the immersion is, remember I said you can get up to 2 companions.
Yes.
So when you're stealthing, you're like crouching, and then there will be cone of vision for the enemies, and then you have to kind of avoid those cones, okay? The funny thing is, when you're crouching, the game would treat the companions as invisible. At the start, I'm like, don't run out, don't run out.
And
So,
then he
of
goes on.
course, this would be yeah. So this would be a totally different system, right? So right now, a tip to those who are worried at the start, when you're crouching or like in the stealth mode, your companions are invisible to the enemies. So the AI might just walk around the corner, but they are actually invisible. So don't worry too much about it. So I wish this could be better by having those like hold your position or move their command like Mass Effect did. And then I can keep them at the door, and then I will lone wolf and stealth in. That would not break immersion as much.
Yes. Or better yet, maybe you can control your companion with limited abilities as well. That might be fun.
That would remind me of Dragon Age, right? Because you could stop one person, move the next person to there, and then move there. Yeah.
Yes.
So like those would be great. But of course, I'm sure including systems like this would make the game even bigger, right?
Let me ask you, and I didn't get it, but is the game in real-time combat or is it turn-based?
It's real time, but you can slow things down by using action skills like different moves or like a dodge roll. You can slow the game down. But a bit like Max Payne. But of course, there's an action point meter that you run out of, and then you can't use the moves again. But of course, there's a potion you can drink to increase the points again.
Okay. So is it something similar to Diablo, or is it more close to XCOM?
I would say, of course, XCOM is more turn-based strategy placing there. So I would say is a bit closer to Diablo, but is a twin-stick shooter with stealth elements. So I would say it's more like Commandos.
Oh, that is a good one. Yes.
So remember last year when we were chatting about this, I played a game called Desperados 3. I mentioned it 2 episodes ago. So it's very similar to that, but the story and a lot of the game mechanics are different. But gameplay-wise, top-down, solving a little bit of puzzle, moving around, trying to stealth around corner visions, is quite similar.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's many minutes about my game. So I definitely want to finish the game. So that's definitely in my mind.
Oh.
And I do want to play again, but maybe only when I get my Steam Deck. So because I feel like this is a perfect, play 10 minutes, put it down, play 10 minutes, put it down, sort of single player game.
Yes, and I can imagine the Steam Deck will be a very good control for it.
Yeah, exactly. So it'd just be like a regular controller. So that'd be great with like a touch screen. I can't remember. Does the Steam Deck have touch screen? Or maybe just the sensitive pad. But anyway, I think that, the sensitive pad, I think. So more like a mouse.
I have no idea if Steam Deck got touch screen. I don't even remember if Switch got touch screen.
I think Switch has, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think everything in the world has touch screen right now. So
well, apart from my MacBook.
Well, that makes sense, right?
Yeah. So that wraps up my chat about Wild West, which is my second Game of the Year game. If you haven't played it yet and you enjoy this type of game, a nice story experience with a nice dark fantasy story, and I hope I haven't spoiled it for you with any chance, then definitely check it out, with Christmas sale coming, or it's on Game Pass. So definitely check that out. So, Ron, what is your... Now, I remember you didn't rank your Game of the Year games. So, what is another top 3 game for you this year?
Well, another top 3 games for me is... Well, like you last week, I've given an indie game a title of the Game of the Year. And this week, I'm
Call of
going
the Lamb, right?
Yes, it's called Call of the Lamb. And it was an indie game that is quite fun. And I didn't mention it last episode, and one of the reasons I ranked it as a Game of the Year is because I don't play indie games, and this game got me into indie game. So that's one of the reasons of it.
Nice. So I can see your backlog is growing with my 2 Game of the Year games.
Yes, it's growing bigger and bigger by the week. So, this week I'm going to give it to a game that is another genre. Jax, can you have guessed it?
Well, I am very sure. I'm very sure Elden Ring is one of the games. Is it Elden Ring this year? Is it today?
That is a very good guess, mate. And with no surprise to you, Jax, this time, the other Game of the Year for me is Elden Ring. Yes, no surprise for it, because my gaming style is a bit vanilla. I really like AAA games, and especially action RPG with a open world settings. And as I've mentioned 2 episodes ago, this is one of the games I spent a lot of time on this year. I can still remember I come home every night and play the game for an hour like a faithful disciple, addicted to it. And you probably noticed this game single-handedly stopped our game time co-op sessions for about 1 to 2 months, or even more.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, it didn't help that there wasn't many games. I think it was when you nearly finished Elden Ring was when Halo came out, right?
No, we just gone back to Halo
right.
multiplayer.
Oh yeah, it was out already.
Yeah, it was out last December. And I think when I played Elden Ring, you were playing, obviously, Tunic and Halo multiplayer. I was reluctant to go back into Halo multiplayer, so you went pro without me. And that is for very good reasons. But anyway, yeah. So, given the unhealthy amount of time I spent on it, which is around 120 hours, I have to say I enjoyed a lot of time when I was playing from it, and from start to finish, and without any serious burnout. So, especially with the game as a massive open world game, like other games like other games such as Assassin's Creed Origins, Odysseys, or the more recent one I played is Ghost of Tsushima. I do feel a little bit burnout during the mid-game to late-game side of them, but not for Elden Ring. And I do believe a lot of people out there will agree with me on my choice as Elden Ring to deserve a spot as the game of the year. And let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most people who played it would have. And if you look around, if you catch up on the Game of the Year news, and I'm sure many outlets will choose Elden Ring as one of the top one.
Yes. Consider its size and scale of it. So let me get into it for you. So, as you know, Elden Ring is an open world action RPG. If any listeners are not familiar with the game and continue to this part of the podcast, well, I applaud you to stay on for this long. But because this is one of the most famous game of the year right now, and for me to judge a game like this, I'll usually break this down into 3 core parts that needs to nail for it to be a great game. And Elden Ring did a fantastic job for most of this. So let me start on the world part of the Elden Ring, which
fantasy.
I do believe is one of the things that draws me in the most. So Elden Ring is set in this fantasy western medieval world that is with a massive open world. And if you can remember the clip I shared with you when I started playing it, my character was riding down this hillside with an encampment overlooking a massive foggy lake and with a grand castle in the middle of it with some mountains lying behind it. That gave me a very big Lord of the Rings vibes back then. That is the main reason I sent it to you, if you remember it. And this is also given me this brief sense of how massive the open world of this game is. Given that most of these areas are all explorable, and it is only a quarter of the explorable area of the game. So as a person who enjoys exploring a lot in games, the scale is not the most important part, to be honest, because I play a lot of games with massive open world before, like Assassin's Creed Origins and Odysseys. And now, Jax, I know you have played a lot of open world games before to a point that you are starting to avoid them. Yeah? And
Yes.
Yeah. I think I understand why you start to avoid them, because a lot of these kind of games, especially Ubisoft games, they have a huge open world, but they are filled with emptied content, loitering with countless of unrewarding side quests that is not related to the stories. You have to spend so much time walking around and doing some unrelated
fetch quest
or getting some just a few coins at the very end of them. But in Elden Ring, I often find myself exploring areas like a tomb or a cave system and find these kind of different rewards at the very end of it.
Yeah. I mean, like, as you mentioned, like, one of the reasons why I'm just, I wouldn't say bored of open world. Well, I mentioned before, I just don't want to spend time exploring the world, which is the reason why people enjoy these massive open worlds, is to spend time exploring the world. So like
Yes.
for me, I feel like I'm just like totally different. Like for a lot of people, they like to stand around. Like a lot of people who talk about them enjoying the world of like massive open world games, like such as Elden Ring, or like I'm sure Starfield coming up, like Skyrim, all of these worlds like the Ubisoft Watch Dogs or Assassin's Creed. A lot of people tell me they just like standing there and look around the beauty. I mean,
Mm,
obviously, me playing on Xbox Series S, I'm standing there and not looking at much.
yes.
And like a lot of people really enjoy standing there listening to the NPC to talk and chat. The only game that I really enjoyed doing, not those, but just enjoying all the side quests and things, is still Witcher 3. Really enjoyed
Hmm.
that game. It's probably the one of the only open world games that I've finished, like big ones anyway. So for me, it really depends on the quest. And I don't know, I'm just, for me, like Elden Ring, I don't look forward to going to that dungeon. I mean, for people, it's like, oh, you might get loot, there'll be gameplay and things. And so, like, for me, I'm like, kind of guess what's going to go on, that sort of thing. But, you know, like, I have to say, I do really agree that Elden Ring is beautiful. Even on the Xbox Series S, it looked really stunning. And, like, the gameplay, I guess, is really different when we compare to things like Ubisoft, because the actual fighting mechanic isn't fun either. But for Elden Ring, I can see for those who really enjoy that timed, detailed melee battle, it should be really good.
Yes. Yeah, I get what you mean because I do enjoy a lot of time playing other games in screenshot modes, namely the other game called Ghost of Tsushima. The screenshot mode in that game is amazing because instead of freezing the world around you, it still enabled the physics of the wind and different elements of the scene is still moving. So you can instead of
Yeah,
taking a screenshot, you can take a motion screenshot in that game. And
that's cool.
I just think about Elden Ring. I don't think they have a screenshot mode, but back to the world building of Elden Ring, it has a lot of diversity from the grassland you visited at the very beginning of the game to the lake I mentioned just now, up to the golden plateau with a grand capital, and down to a rotten wasteland, and past that to the snowy mountains with giants on it, and later on in the late game, which I actually accidentally explored earlier, is a crumbled ruin in the sky with tornado and dragons flying around.
Wow, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, and all that does not include various dungeons and a massive underground system, this can be, which each of these areas can be as expensive as a game themselves.
Yeah, I remember falling into that underground system. I messaged you. I was like, "Oh, I can't get out, Ron. I'm stuck inside. I'm dying. I can't
Oh
get
wait,
out."
that is actually a cave system. And the funny thing about Elden Ring is you got loots loitered around different areas, but instead they usually give you a reward of a weapon or a new skills. And I remember the chest you opened transport you into these dungeon in the rotten wasteland
Yeah,
with enemies
so that
that
was cool.
looks like, yeah, it's cool. And it's surprising, and when you are inside you have to fight out, or you can actually sneak out, if I remembered, because when you are first transport into that location you are under leveled massively,
Yeah,
but it does give you the ability to go out and run away.
yeah,
That's one of the
yeah.
charm
I
of
just
the
ran past. I tried to kill the people, but I killed a few. Stealth killed a few, and then I just keep getting killed by some archer at top of some rock, which I couldn't get to. And so in the end, I just ran out. And then I ran out. I remember get to a open area, which looks like a downhill bowl of death.
oh
And I remember
yes.
getting my horse and then running down. and then dying again, and then got back into the dungeon.
Yes.
And then you told me, I think you told me once I get out of the dungeon, I could teleport out, right? I think that's what happened in the end.
Yes,
I
you
think
have to
once I
find
exited,
you
yeah,
have to find a bonfire or a site of grace in the term of the game,
yeah,
and you can
yeah,
quick travel to another site of grace.
yeah. So that's how I got out, and then I stopped soon after that.
Yes, you've got experience with this kind of tunnel, but the great thing about this is all of these locations are designed to have and challenging encounters, no matter your level or your character level or your skill levels. And with every encountered at the very end of each system, such as the cave you were stuck in, at the very end you will be given a reward that is, in a way, meaningful or useful.
Can I ask, Ron, what do you mean by a useful or meaningful loot reward?
Okay, say if you're a mage, you went into a mage tower to the very end of it and you fight a boss, and the boss actually drops a related related weapon for you, and maybe even a spell for you.
Oh, so is it based on where you fight, or is it based on your character?
Okay, it's based on where you fight and what type of enemy it is. So if it is a melee encounter, the boss will likely drop a melee sword, or if you're fighting a mage, it drops a staff and some spells for you to use.
So that's nice because that's a bit more realistic. Because a lot of the other games, you fight for ages and then you get a special weapon that is not your class.
Yes, especially I think Borderlands is like you are fighting this guy with a shotgun and it drops a sniper rifle. Oh, great.
Yeah,
Yes.
that kind of kills the immersiveness, right?
Yes. I mean, the role and the environment crafted in the game encourages you to explore it and their artistic styles. And I feel like everything's are handcrafted and placed in a location with a purpose for either the gameplay or telling a story. And combined with the greatly timed music that was performed at a certain location, the world just comes alive in a wonderful way. This shows how much passion the developers and the artists has poured into this game. And I think that's what Elden Ring does so outstandingly compared to other games that has a open world scene.
Yeah. One thing, as you mentioned, that I feel Elden Ring does a really good job is, unlike as we compared already, like the Ubisoft big open worlds with lots of HUDs, lots of markers, and just a really messy map. I remember Elden Ring is a game that doesn't really give you a tutorial, right? It doesn't really help you with a lot. Just die and learn again.
Yeah, and I think the game embraced this kind of practice. Just giving you a world that is fantastic doesn't really work out, and Souls are famously hard for their combat system. And just like you said, there's not much tutorial at the very beginning. The game will throw you into the game by giving you two bosses. But the charm of the game is both of these bosses are killable if you are skillful enough with the controller or the keyboard and mouse. But if you are not skillful enough like me, but they're also designed as an optional boss, which you can come back later. You can always find new ways to level up your characters, find new arsenal skills or spells, and also level them up. And when you finally come back and kill these two bosses, especially the one that where you tried multiple times and finally winning, the sense of achievement and victory is the very core of the charm of this game.
Yeah, like all these Souls, all the tough games, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I get it. Like some games, it takes a while, and when you do, you're like, finally. And then normally when I get there, I'm like, okay, just let me save. Let me save.
Yes, I think what Elden Ring does better compared to other Souls games is they're more generous of the with the save points. Usually, there usually have to be a site of grace before you fight any bosses. And with my experience with other Dark Souls games, you have to run a long way back to your boss encountered when you died, and you might die again. And during you walk back to the site, so I think they improved it a lot to improve the accessibility And like I said before, you can always come back later stronger because the world has so much to offer you can find. After my 100 and something hours of gameplay, I haven't found everything, and I learned there's actually a boss which is a three-headed lightning throwing dragon that I haven't seen yet. So one day I might go back and try that boss. And I think at the very end of the game, I was so over leveled that I find the final few bosses quite easy, because one of the boss, I think in the mid to late game, called Melina, famously, she's one of the hardest Souls bosses that people are saying. And in order to beat it, I think I was farming a few areas and leveling up for at least 2 days. That will be worth about 4 hours before I go back. And when I finally beat her, I feel like I beat the game already. And everything was so easy, to be honest.
I mean, I like it how like you can be over leveled, I guess. Like if you spend the time to master a craft, then you get rewarded. Because if I remember correctly, some games, not the Souls games, but some games will scale the boss difficulty beyond a certain point.
Yes, but Elden Ring does not scale the boss. You scale before you go to the boss.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is good because it just means like you just have to practice and train up a bit.
Yes.
Like back then, even playing Pokemon on the Game Boy, I would spend lots of time running squares in the grass and trying to level up, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I guess I'm just getting old for those.
Yeah. But when you get immersed in the game and the mechanics, you'll go on and go on. And if you really like exploring, like myself, I always find the areas with different styles and how the game artists come up with the area it's just amazing.
Yeah. Like I think like we mentioned, we touched on this, like at least for me, it's not, I don't like exploring. I just have this mental block with third person game. I mean like first person immersive AAA games walking around. I realize that like even in Tunic, I do a lot of walking around. I'm fine with that, right? Even in Weird West, I'm fine with that. Maybe I just need to find something that doesn't take as much time.
Yeah, I get what you mean, because it is a big commitment for you to go in Elden Ring. Yeah. I mean, I only finished the story for one time, and I think it is one of the better ending. I mean, the main characters, which is my character, become the Elden Lord, and one of the characters which is a witch called Rani, leaving the land in between and somehow solve. I don't remember the details of the story, but the dead stays the dead and bring peace to the realm. But there are also other 5 different kinds of endings, which I don't have time to go back and try it out. And with the overwhelming amounts of skills and spells you can find and try it out, you got a lot of replayability of the game if you are up for that.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Like I feel like if you really enjoy that type of game, just buying it once, you can play for the whole year.
Yes. And given the game have a lot of replayability with different endings and different combat style, it also got a lot of laws you can look through, both in games or online. And I really can't say too much about the story because it's already fading inside my head. But I can say it is a very immersive world if you are really into this kind of storytelling. I think one of the most special thing about Elden Rings is they tell the story through a lot of different unconventional ways. So instead of relying on cutscenes and dialogues, you will find a lot of details in the surroundings. And it also does well by telling you the story with the scene and the environment. Say if you run into a ruin where you can somewhat guess what happened by looking around. It makes me feel like an archaeologist.
It's a bit more exploration rather than reading a lot of lore and things.
Yes. And one of the most important thing I quite like Elden Ring is because there's actually no urgency to the story. But it is actually a good thing for the game because there's so much to find in the games, so it enables me to take my time and my own pace to progress through the story and level up and try the boss again. Yes.
which is exactly the reason why I don't like Skyrim.
Well, Skyrim kind of
I just
still,
end up
yeah.
traveling to like an area that I'm way underpowered and get one shot 6 times, and then I'm like, nah, well, where should I go? No idea.
Yeah.
Okay, next game.
Yeah, but because I mean Skyrim is a bit different compared to Elden Ring because it does gives you an urgency about the doom coming upon, but and in Elden Ring, in my impression of the story, which I kind of forget right now, you are the doom that is coming to the world by trying to become Elden Lord. So it takes the urgency out of the story, but you can explore around and take the story at your own pace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, once again, if you enjoy this type of immersive experience, living in another land and explore and kind of see what you get and craft your own story, I also feel like Elden Ring would definitely be a really good game.
I don't quite agree on you say when you want to live in another world, because you'll just probably die in Elden Ring a lot instead of living.
Yeah, but I'm sure there are times with the SSD you'll load quick.
Yes. Well, if I'm playing this on the Xbox One X, I probably would have stopped ages ago.
Yeah, which is me and Star Wars Fallen Jedi,
Yes.
Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh yeah.
I said I would come back to the game, but it's just one of those, like nowadays, there's just so many games that, like, once you put down a game, it's really hard to go back and find time for it again.
Yes. Right? I understand what you mean because I think I put down the God of War, the first one, that came out in 2018 on PlayStation 4 because the load time was just too long, and I bought it again on PC instead of obviously I can start at where I stopped at PlayStation 4, but I did, and I have to just start out the game all over again to just get back to the point and then finish the game, because these type of games, especially story-driven ones, you have to relearn the story and then progress onward before you just start playing at the point you stopped at 4 months ago.
Yeah, definitely. I agree that Elden Ring definitely is worth a Game of the Year. Would Elden Ring be my first Game of the Year in the next episode?
Depending on your reaction, I don't think so. I really doubt that.
Maybe I'm pretending. Maybe I secretly finished
You're
it.
deflecting.
By next week, maybe I will finish it by next week.
Yes. So a little teaser for next week, I guess. And I have to spend more time gaming if I want to talk properly about my next game as well.
Oh.
Yes.
No, I think I might know. Audience,
You
if you want to
probably know.
maybe check out our YouTube and IG. Then you might have a guess.
Yes, it's going to be a very easy guess.
And I'm sure definitely worth a spot in the Game of the Year. I mean,
Yes.
to be honest, this year, like at least because I game on the Xbox, right? It seems like it's a very barren year. But when you look at PlayStation, there's like Forbidden West, there's like God of War. Was GT this year?
Oh yes, it is this year.
Yeah, I mean, like on the other side, on the blue side, PlayStation is just really great. I mean, last year wasn't a bit empty, so this year was amazing. And so in general, I feel like gaming is just thriving and just so many games, and it kind of makes me miss the old days when we are just stuck on a game. I wouldn't say stuck; we just really get to enjoy a game or two. But now, with like things like Game Pass, I'm like, I just want to try another game, and then end up not touching the old game again.
Yes, I think, like you said before, back in the old days, I think instead of stuck on 1 to 2 games, I do believe we jumped from games to games because there was so much coming out back then. And I do think COVID took a big hit on the gaming industry. So most of the games we look forward to are now delayed, and slowly they're coming back out, which is a good thing. So a lot to look forward to. Yeah, I guess that's the end of our episode. To our audience, have you been playing the games we mentioned just now? Let us know in the comment.
If you can guess what my first Game of the Year is, put in the comments. And if you can guess Ron's other Game of the Year, put in the comment as well.
Hope you had enjoyed this episode. And if you did, press the like button. Subscribe if you want to follow us in our future discussion. Follow us by searching L2RT_gaming on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can now also watch us stream our gameplay from time to time and interact with us via Twitch with our username _Jaxmeister or Ron L2RT. Links are also in the description. And finally, remember, aim before you execute.